So we'll start off on the first sessions, which is going to be the conference theme and also the 12D Model 11 highlights. So what I'll actually do is I'll probably go into some highlights and you'll see probably why the conference theme comes out of that. So basically, version 11, how many people went on to what's new in version 11 seminars? Oh, good, you'll know all this. No problem at all. Basically, there's over 200 new things in version 11, so there's quite a bit there. It actually probably goes almost quite to 300 things. And they go from little things like search. Now, you wouldn't have heard this at the What's New because it wasn't in there at the time. You know, when you go up there in that little search bar and you type in something and it searches it, most of the things you can't find, things like volumes. What we now do is search the whole path of where it is on the menu, so you get about 2 orders of magnitude more things when you search. 12D AZ, zipped up, we talked about those things. 12D XML, again that wasn't mentioned, but we do have an XML version of our 12DA file, which we'll talk about on Tuesday, and a zipped up version of it. Drag and drop, that's the thing we all did see in that, which is great now, makes things much easier. And a whole lot of managers for sharing, models, views and so on, and reading 2D PDF files. One thing I think everyone who was at the things thought was very good is in the names.4d file, you actually can now have groups of things, so your list is not as long. These are just the minor things that are in there, but we'll probably find most useful to people. And there's also a pipe node in that names.4d, so you can actually define pipes and things and have them automatically come out with the right sizing and stuff. And any comments in there in the names.4d come up in your data tooltips. I've just picked some of the things we went through at the Birds of a Feather just to see what people thought were the most important things. The pipe control bar, it actually allows you to fill information about pipes, so when you do stuff in CAD, it automatically comes out as with a pipe dimension, with a diameter or a box culvert, and straight away you can start drawing. A lot of people now are doing a lot of work with services, it makes it very easy to do so, but the main thing is, in your CAD control bar, if you use your names.4d, that'll actually then use all that information about pipes. So if you've got named pipes with a correct good naming convention, you just pick one with the names.4d, and when you start drawing with the CAD, it'll come out with a pipe of a certain size. Dimensions, leaders and tables. We're going to bang on about those the next few days, so I won't say much more. Again, people are going to find them very useful because they're all associative. So when you move things around, the dimensions and things will go with you. And Tony's the man. If there's something not there, then you come and see Tony and he'll fix it up and go back and beaver away and put it in there for you. So he does want genuine feedback once you start using it. There's a new thing called multi-string properties. We called it element properties when I went around and visited you all, but it's now multi-string properties. This just allows you to select a whole lot of things. It shows you all the properties that are common, so you can change them more easily than having to do with 200 different options to find them. Chains, heaps of things in chains, and again we'll mention these over the next couple of days because the whole idea of our Birds of a Feather is we'll now go into a lot more detail in these sorts of things. So some of the things will be in the sessions you'll see in design a lot on chains. And I think the major things in there, you can copy and paste between chains, and the fact you can do multi-select and just delete a whole lot of things at once, make them inactive and active, move things up and down as a block, and copy and paste as a whole block. So I think they're, apart from having 40 new commands, I think again, they're the highlights you'll find in chains. The drainage and sewer, as I said at the What's New, I'm a novice in this area, I have no idea what it means, but there's a whole lot of work gone into there. Jeff and Rob just beaver away putting stuff in this all the time. And again, they've got that whole Birds of a Feather going for the 3 days where they'll go through all the features that are in there in the drainage and sewer. So there was little things like scale input blockages, better road overtopping with new weird types, the green man infiltration method, which people in Perth on sand really need, a whole lot more dynamic graphs, and Jeff's the man who does all those, so be able to ask for more on those, a whole lot of stuff in the 2D side, and there's a sewer attractive force method, which they'll be talking about on the 3rd day. Point clouds, heaps of work's been done on point clouds. Those who come along to these conferences mainly to see if Alan screws up in his demonstrations will be pleased to know that he'll be showing some things in point clouds at the end of the conference. So he will again try and go through a lot of the new things and just show you how the point clouds are going, because they are becoming more and more usable. You're getting more and more of them, and people are starting to work out how to handle them, what is useful data in a point cloud. E-Plan, this is Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria. It is now happening. This is where everything's going to be lodged electronically, no more drawings for putting in for cadastral information. Han will be discussing that and talking about it, so it'll be rolling out with version 11. The little Kiwis down there on the side, the little New Zealander, because they've been doing it since the year 2004. And so it's not as though Australia's new in here. So we'll be discussing that in the cadastral survey in the surveying section. ADAC, I'll be giving a few talks on ADAC, which is a whole lot of things for councils in Queensland mainly at this stage, about collecting assets as designed and as constructed information. One that everyone was happy about to see is clash detection. Han will be demonstrating that and talking about it. It was mentioned in the Birds of a Feather after the morning tea. That was incorrect. That just got in there. He'll be talking about clash detection in the main auditorium to everybody. I think it's tomorrow. I just have to check the schedule. The main thing about the clash detection, it goes about 1,000 times faster than what we had in there before. So you'll be able to handle much bigger data sets. Sightlines. A lot of people, sightlines are used a lot in sight distance. That's a big thing there. And the major thing is, with sightlines before, we only could look at triangulations to stop your sightline. And that's been beefed up so you can have super pipes, drainage strings, extrusions, you name it, where you can see it in visualisation, it can now stop your sightlines. So it just makes it much more accurate for getting that information. Tony's been working a lot on this, so one of our newbies, so you're able to pester him as much as you like on things about sightlines, and any problems in there, he'll fix them up for you. And we use those in the sight distance, view sheds, and there's a new one in sort of shadow analysis. So you can give a time of day and year and whatever, and it'll then figure out where the sun is and then draw rays to say what's in shadow and what's not. Plotting, there's a whole lot of stuff here in plotting. A lot of people we discovered have their plotting, their title block information in an Excel spreadsheet or a database. You can now use all that information in your own title block. So again, you'll find that very, very useful, or pull it out of something called 12D Synergy, which will be mentioned later on this session. There's another thing called plot sheet composition. And again, Lane will be demonstrating this afternoon, and Ben has been the main person working on that. So if there's extra things you want to know about that, or extra things after it's been shown to you, Ben's the man to grab. 12D field pickup is finally really going to be released. So that's for those where you're controlling the instrument from side 12D field on the pickup side. The super alignment, there's a whole lot of new combinations available. There's also things to make it easy to work out where things gone wrong. You can have start and end markers to just limit how much of it is being used. They can work out, because that's the biggest problem with super alignments with element methods, is figuring out when something's gone wrong, where it's actually happening. So they'll make your life much easier. And there's now a diameter in there, so you can have a super pipeline. So you can have a super alignment with a diameter, so it can be doing for pipe work. And the major thing in there that helps you with pipe work is you can lock your VIPs to your HIPs. So basically you can fix the vertical IP point to be locked to the horizontal, so they act as an XYZ point. So that means if you have a pipe that goes along and then goes down and so on, and you want to move those points around, they stay locked together. So that makes the super alignment the best thing to use then for pipelines. So it allows it to work both as a alignment string and also as a 3D vertex with this locking. So that's all in the super alignment, plus many, many other things. There's a whole lot of new smart changes. The little ones in grey sort of down the bottom, they're all the new ones in version 11. And again, in the design room, they'll go through all of those ad nauseum, but they're very, very, very powerful. If you're still typing in a change, don't. By using smart changes, it just means instead of typing in a start change, you can pick start change with a string. So if you move your start change around, you don't have to retype something in. It just knows that, or end of it, stuff like that. So there's a whole lot of good things. If you haven't used them yet, using smart changes in your design makes life so much easier if you move things around. Another thing that's happened, and all of you designers have asked for this, or well, it's not so much asked for it, you've been puzzled by it, that you define your link, and it can be defined by width and height, crossfall and slope, any two of those. And if you then use the wrong modifier, you have to modify it with only the modifiers that you defined it in. So if you define it in width and height, you can only use those modifiers. That's all gone for version 11. Now it doesn't matter how you've defined it, you can modify it any way you like. So basically all those errors you get when you pick the wrong one, when you've defined it by width and crossfall and you try and modify the height, they've all gone. You can say what you're holding and what you're modifying. So all of those with doing design, I think you'll find that'll be so useful. It gets rid of a lot of our commands. There's a whole lot of new MTF commands. There's fixed decisions. There's fixed boxing. So you can actually do all that inside your MTF file rather as a separate thing, say in your templates or as a separate process. So it means your MTF can do everything in the one place. You don't have to do it there. You can still do it as you used to before, but it does mean if you wish, you can have it all in one file. And there's another one called Analyze Subgrade. I miss putting that on. It will be gone through in the Birds of a Feather session for designers. So it analyses subgrade and figures out all the crazy things you have to do about it has to be a certain depth and all that sort of thing. So all designers, you should have a good look at that in the Birds of a Feather. There's another one in there called MTF Fixed Trim, which I think all the designers will love. Basically, you've got your thing, you always have to trim it back to something. You can now draw a plan line and it'll trim all your strings back to there and all your sections. So basically you can make cut-out poles, you can end of job, cut out where you've got culverts and things, and everything will be looked after. So with all those commands, all the things you'd have to do in drafting afterwards or mucking around and it lost all your 3D information, I think you'll use the MTF trim all the time. Snippets. For designers, snippets. You'll find that, again, there's so many things you can do with snippets, and there'll be a whole new snippet library going out and a section on the 12D forum for snippets. So there's going to be lots of examples there that you'll be able to look at and use. Because in some ways, snippets are about the easiest way to achieve productivity gains in design and just making sure everyone's singing from the same song sheet in your company by having a snippets that they use that has everything set up. Now, there's one little thing I'll just mention, and being the head of the company, I can do this. To just give you a bit of background and for some of the things that have come up. Alan and I started the company about 1988. That's when we first got together, so it's a few years ago then. And at the time, we actually made and wrote a system to do 3D triangulation. So that's where, instead of working with tins, you actually work with tetrahedrons in 3 dimensions. And we call it tetralation. So another little buzzword I made up. So that's what we called it. And we thought it'd have great applications in things like solids modelling, sound. We thought sound. You'd do this 3D tetralation and then you'd have sound in time. So contours become contour shells. And so you'd see the sound waves going out, or ore body modelling. So we thought, yeah, we'd be on a great winner with this tetralation. And basically, but now at the same time, Alan, he wanted to develop a dynamic, and I've got the words from there, a 3D civil solids modelling system. That was his other dream in 1988. And at the time, of course, you would have expected and we would work on things without tetralation. And this is so we could have pavements and everything is lovely 3D solids. That was the idea. So this is back in 1988. So we decided so we could demonstrate to people, we built a product called Spotter. Now this thing, I don't think you've ever heard of Spotter. It was basically though, and part of Spotter, it had a dynamic section view. So this is in 89 we wrote Spotter. And so you had some plan views and a dynamic section view. So in the plan view, we could put down a string and then you'd see it sectioned in the section view. And as we moved it around, it cut through our triangulation. And the Spotter actually, what was called Spotter, is because actually what we had is where we had the strings, we had towers. And we had the catenaries going between them. So as you move them around, it gave you the minimum clearance for power lines and things like that. So we had this thing called Spotter. So, rightio, that's what we had. So we went on to the main roads department here in Queensland to demonstrate this system to them. And we proposed to develop a 3D civil visualisation system for them. And we even had a name for it at the time. We set up a company called 4D Solutions. which we had a catch cry, the extra dimension in graphics, because this was going to be so dynamic. And I think the system was about $50,000 we quoted to the main roads. Anyway, they went away, and after much deliberation, as the main roads does, the TMR as they're now known, they came back and said, in a nice sort of way, that basically a 3D visualisation system was two-way out. Such a thing would never fly. We're a bit ahead of our time, but they could use a fast concept planning tool, a bit like Spotter. So that's what happened. We parked the tetralation code, which we've never brought out ever since, although a friend of mine who's in the mining industry, he actually pursued it in there to try and use it for ore modelling, and so we stopped it and made a product called 4D Model. So this is in 1988, 1989. Spotter became 4D Model. Now why I'm telling this story is because today, after all these years, 12D Model 11 has probably seen the realisation of Alan's dream. It didn't quite come as quickly as we thought. We had to go through a lot of things with alignment strings, then the recalc functions, they went in early days, apply many, super alignments and computators. But basically what happened is that finally for version 11, we're able to put in a thing we call a Trimesh. Now, Trimesh, it wasn't actually tetralation as we thought we'd do for this direction, but the idea of a Trimesh, it takes your 2D triangulation and forms a 3D solid of it. And the important thing to us, it's actually what Alan was wanting to do back in 1988, so it's taken us a little while to get there, but we are persistent buggers. And the whole idea was, though, it had to be civil. Like there's been solids modelling systems around, but they usually come from the mechanical side, where you have cones and spheres and you intersect them and do stuff. Great for mechanical parts. Useless for civil engineering, where things change every millimetre. So all these things can be generated in your MTFs and things, so you get nice, solid, civilly correct objects. So luckily, we've, after, 25 years of going with 12D Model, it went from 4D Model at the time to then became 12D Model. And finally, we've actually got our Trimeshes in there, so we can do proper 3D solid modelling of pavement layers and things. The biggest application, though, straight off that people see is for tunnels, large culverts, bridge decks, stuff like that. Obviously, tins just didn't cut it for that sort of purpose, so a Trimesh is perfect. So basically, all those things now became very, very easy to do in our product. Trimeshes were going to be in version 12, so they weren't due out for another couple of years. But when we started playing with it a little while ago, and some of the things we did at our last boot camp, it looked like we'd be able to do it. So the programmers have been working flat out over the last 8 months to get Trimeshes in there. So I think you'll just see all the applications that come from Trimeshes that was well worth them pushing ahead to go for and bring it in. Because you can use them for all sorts of solids. When you see a section like that, or we see a section cut through them, you can cut anywhere through it. It's not just a section, sections every 25 metres. These are solid objects that you can cut anyway and see what it looks like. So curves, pavements, trench, footpaths, all those sorts of things are full solids models. Overlay and widening, and Peter will demonstrate this in design, so you can form any shape if you like, and it's not just in a cross section. It then goes forward right through as a full 3D object. We're not just talking about darn silly cross sections every 10 metres. This is a proper 3D object you can chop any way you like. And even simple things like barriers, being able to put in barriers and things into your MTF, so it's right there. And even nastier things like bridges. This is an example that Pete goes through, which that whole bridge is done in one MTF. That's all coming out solids in one MTF. So you move it around, everything moves. So basically, that's what Trimesh is about. It was, excuse me, Alan's dream 27 years ago. 12D field set out, perfect for this sort of stuff, for tunnel set outs, face surveys, tunnel conformance. The Trimesh is perfect. And our first talk will be discussing of how we've been using this already in the beta version on those sorts of things. So Trimeshes is something we've been aiming at not quite tetralations as we thought, but it doesn't matter how you get there with the right tool in the end. With 12D Field, it's taking the first thing to really take advantage of Trimeshes, but there's other extra things in there for you, things like measurement rounds. So when you actually though see your mouse mat, there's a couple of things on you might have noticed when you do actually look at it. You'll see down here, there's probably, that's me, the old codger down there, and the beginning of our time where we were called 4D. Whereas this is Alan up here, Screamo Buff and his little Mercedes that he has, which is where we are now, where we've actually moved into where we can virtually do anything and then screaming along at high speed. This is symbolic in lots of ways. Most of my cars I own are bombs. They all cost about $3,000 each. I'm not too worried about cars, but Al's got this beautiful Mercedes that he drives around with, so there's lots of hidden context in this mouse mat. But basically, it's been a journey, and we've got to where one of the points we wanted to get to 27 years ago in all sorts of funny ways. One journey for us is finished. It doesn't stop 12D. There's now 2 million things we can do. Every time we finish one thing, there's something more we can do. And one thing we have been working on for the last 3 years, a thing that you'll start hearing a lot about in this conference in the future, is 12D Synergy. So that's another new product coming out at the same time as version 11 of 12D Model. It's a data management project collaboration tool. It just means it can handle all your data. The reason we've done this is not because we thought we'd make lots of money. It's more that our customers were asking for it, because most of our customers are small firms. They're not huge firms. And so they wanted something that was fairly cheap and reasonable they could work with. They weren't keen on staying off paying $250,000 to get going and $250,000 every time they want a new project. So 12D Synergy evolved out of trying to do a product that would work for most of our customers, which are smallest people. So you will hear about it because it's tailored for that sort of customer and to use 12D model data as well. But it can be used for lots and lots of other things. And Richard will talk about 12D Synergy in this morning's break. And there is a birds of a feather. And in that particular one for the Synergy, the talks get repeated and repeated and repeated. So they're repeated 6 times. So if you don't miss the first lot of them, there's another 5 occasions you can catch up on the 12D Synergy. Another thing with 11 people have been asking about for a while is different dongles. There's new dongles for version 11. There's a micro USB one, a SD card, a mini SD card that go inside your computer. Now these micro USBs, I've got a sort of a bad picture here, but you can actually see it there. That is it on the side of the computer. So if you're having problems breaking a dongle off and whatever, then the micro USB would probably be quite good for you, or an SD card to go inside. The problem we haven't figured out yet is how in hell do we label them? You've got this thing that's small and the one inside, so yeah, that's the one mystery. But basically there, with version 11, you've got these new dongles that will be available. The other ones will be available, there's the same, but these will be just different forms. A final thing I'll mention before moving on about for version 11 is there's some new pricing in there for you. Again, a lot of our customers have been pressed pretty hard, and some of the things that have been in 12D model for a while we'd like you to use, and they've been having as much as we'd like. So what we decided is that some of the things that were there you had to pay for, we're actually now including as part of other modules. So those customers who are on maintenance and still stay on maintenance, well, first, Trimesh is part of the base. I should say that. Trimesh is just like triangulation. TINs, they're just part of the standard base of 12D model. But lots and subdivisions, which are separate or part of survey, they're now actually part of the base. The pipeline module, which was a separate module, that's now just going to be part of the alignment module. So if you've got the alignment module, you also have pipeline module, and of course then you've got the super alignment with diameter, which you'll then be able to use. So all the pipeline diagrams and things like that will also be available there. The sewer string, which is where we started. The drainage came after the sewer, believe it or not, but there's a separate sewer module. We're just going to roll that in as part of the drainage module. So if you've got the drainage module, you'll also have the sewer string. And any of this particular sewer analysis ones, they'll be part of the equivalent drainage analysis module. So if it's a dynamic sewer type thing, it'll be part of the dynamic drainage. So hopefully those people, if you hear any of these things on, if you hear things mentioned about pipeline, you've got the alignment module, you also will have it, so listen in. If there's something about the sewer side or sewer analysis or whatever, and you've got the drainage modules or equivalent, again, it'll actually now be part of your thing for version 11, so you can also listen in and start using it. So basically, that's a few of the little things in version 11. The difference about this conference is for the sessions coming in the Birds of a Feather, we'll be going through in a lot of detail in those and a lot more things. Because to try and talk to as a big group, it just doesn't work out. But in the specialties Birds of a Feather, then they can talk just about that particular thing. So in the design, they'll go through all the new things in the design, so you'll be able to go away and use it. Because that's the other thing we've done with the conference. You'll notice this one is 2 years from the previous one. Before, it used to be about 2.5 years for our conferences. So we decided to align it and do it about this time every 2 years, and also have our new version coming out at the same time. So the idea will be that you'll be able to come along here, hear a lot about the new version, and then start taking copies of it soon after to start using it. So 12D version 11 was to be released at this conference. I think it's going to be about 1 month late. But once anyone goes back from this conference, we'll be happy then to give you a beta version so you can start getting ready to take it into your organisations. And so for the future, for the next conference, we'll then have version 12 there to go through the various things ready then for you to take it away when it comes in. So that's a little bit about version 11, just some of the things you'll see over the next few days, and there's some great stuff in version 11. I just picked a few little bits and pieces here and there that made sense. As far as our theme, I'll come back to that later, but basically it's from go to woe. It's just that now you can virtually do everything you wanted to insert our 12D model.